but it actually worked, you know.
It didn't work a treat, because it was one of those things where you got to sort of prove the concept a little.
Sure, yeah.
And people are a little unsure. Like today, people saying, well, how does 3D works for Avatar? How's it going to work on a movie like this? Well, we've already proven that, because we shot this piece in Chitty Springs in Florida. And that's how we demoed the 3D concept, but also how it would look in a cave environment. And people were just blown away, because they really had that feeling of claustrophobia. It really works.
Explain to me cave diving, why it's a thrill, why you do it, and why you thought it'd be an interesting foundation for a story and a movie.
Well, cave diving is one of those things that when you're trying to describe it to someone, they just think you're nuts. I mean, you go underground, underwater, pitch black darkness, and the first question they always ask is, well, what do you go there for? What are you going to see? And it's kind of hard to describe, because it's like, well, there's a lot of rocks and there's a lot of formation and there's this really clear water, and you have this feeling of flight, this ethereal sensation of floating through outer space, and it's kind of that sense of adventure and the adrenaline charge you get from that I think lures you into wanting to discover what's underground. And it's one of those things you've got to go out and do it to really understand what it's about. And so making the movie has really been a way of getting people who would never even think of that as a pastime, or not even a place that they'd even want to visit, but they can come in and experience and see it in 3D and enjoy the story of it as much as they do the environment. And they'll probably still come out and say you're nuts, but at least they'll have had a taste of that experience.
Can you describe for us what that was like emotionally for you, being trapped in that cave, and how you tried to infuse that and parlay that into the actors so they got a sense of what it must have been like?
Well, I think my own story of entrapment in a cave and the Nullarbor has brought a lot to this movie, and one of the things is that not many of us have had a truly near-death experience where you're in a predicament where you think, well, this is my last moment on Earth, and I was truly in that space. The roof of the cave was collapsing, the thunderous sound of boulders and water gushing through the cave, and you think to yourself, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to sort of succumb meekly to this, or am I going to fight on and try and get out? And so a whole range of emotions course through your body, and of course, obviously I did get out, but that provided the material then to come back and say, right, let's create a story where people will feel those kind of emotions, where they'll see the sort of things that I've seen without actually having to go there. And Sanctum is one of those movies where it's a thrill ride, it's a white knuckle experience. You really viscerally feel that you've been on the adventure with the people portraying the cavers and the cave divers in the movie.
You and James have worked on a lot of documentary features and underwater, but were you the first one to take him actually cave diving?
I was in fact the first person to take Jim Cameron cave diving, and when we thought about making the movie, he said, well, why don't you make your cave movie? You've always wanted to do that. And I said, yeah, well, that'd be fantastic, but I've got to get you in a cave because you won't have any appreciation for what the story is about. So we packed all our gear in the 3D camera and went down to Florida, to High Springs, and there's this beautiful crystal clear pool that leads into a cave, and we took Jim on his first dive, and he absolutely loved it. And anyone who's a diver who was taken on that journey and shares that experience has never failed to be moved by it, and he was completely sold. So we spent the next couple of days shooting the material for this test footage for the movie, and then when we showed that to the executives, they just, wow, we've never seen anything like this. This looked like it's going to be a great adventure, and they were hooked as well. So it did a lot of things. It got Jim involved. It got him a taste of something which I know he'd love to do some more of, and of course it got Universal involved.
And do you think this film will generate an explosive movement in cave, extreme sports and cave diving?